The piano community is increasingly conscious of the importance of efficient movement while playing. Correct biomechanics allows for easier learning, more security in performance, and help protects against career-threatening injuries. These principles tend to be discussed with a senior student in mind, common after a potentially devastating injury. However, as all musicians know, it is easier to start something correctly from the beginning and improve upon it as you go along than it is to learn something incorrectly, unlearn it, and relearn it. Unfortunately, the correct biomechanics has not been an integral part of many teachers' experience. The information presented here is intended to aid especially teachers, but also students and parents in understanding efficient playing. I will review basic correct technique and discuss how to integrate it into a standard repertoire. From the very first lesson, a young child can be introduced to healthy hand usage. It will take a long time for it to become an automatic part of their playing. Nonetheless, the earlier these habits are introduced, the more rapidly the child will learn and the more satisfying their piano experience will be. The first thing I teach is how to sit correctly. Most teachers know how to do this, but we'll discuss it anyways. The feet need to be shoulder width apart, the piano sits on the front third of the bench, and there needs to be a 90-degree angle between the upper arm and the forearm. Also, if a student is too short for their feet to fit the floor, they need to have a footstool. Many times a student is sitting well at the lesson, but at home they're not seated correctly. Commercial piano benches are built for adults, and so children come with a low wrist because they're sitting too low. With this established, it is possible to begin to play. Most method books explain that the fingers should be curved. Unfortunately, we then tell students to look up at the notes and not at their hands, thereby making any meaningful feedback from the hand to the brain nearly impossible. I teach my students that they need to understand how our hands should feel when we play. The finger joints need to have some firmness to them. I demonstrate this by having them push against the fingers. Meanwhile, when you play, the wrist, elbow, and shoulder need to stay relaxed. Achieving the correct balance between the strong fingers and relaxed arm is one of the biggest challenges in developing good playing. So now we move to the keyboard. I start with the 4-note exercise. With the second finger lined up with the arm, I play finger 2. Notice that I don't start in front of middle C. This is because the hand will automatically be tilted incorrectly. I do teach reading in front of middle C personally, but for the exercise I will always place the hand away from the body. So returning to the straight line from finger 2, we play. Make sure that the finger joints are properly supported and strong. Move the wrist up and down, and then go on to finger 3. As you go to finger 4, you again want to make sure that the arm is lined up directly behind the finger that's being used. And then we play finger 5, checking every time that the wrist is comfortable. We don't want to see anything like this. Or the wrist being too high, or the wrist being too low, or a collapse across the bridge. With the bridge, you should be able to see the bone through the skin of your hand. The teacher has to check to make sure that the fingers are curved and indeed have a bit of firmness. I pull on the fingers a little bit to see if there's resistance. The wrist has to be checked and moved to make sure that it's comfortable. The elbow doesn't give away tension with position, so I often take the arm and move it off. Young children don't usually hunch up their shoulders unless they have a low wrist. If you tell them to lift their wrist, they'll lift up their shoulders. We don't want to see a curve like this on the fingers. We don't want to see anything down here. We don't want to see anything up here like this. But we maintain a very neutral position. Young children at the ages of 5 and 6 will be able to do this exercise well, usually by the 3rd to 6th week of playing. I don't address the thumb specifically because it is a little trickier. At the same time that I introduce the forefinger exercise, I also introduce a trill exercise. The forefinger exercise teaches how to play each key. The trill exercise teaches how to transfer from one key to another. By encouraging a gentle movement of the wrist between each note, one can subtly introduce a slight rotation. I would never use the word rotation at this stage because inevitably it would be grossly exaggerated. Depending on the age of the student, we can add C-scale in about a month. There are so many new concepts that children are learning in their first year or so of piano that their fingers are rarely curved when they play a piece in their lessons. However, by keeping a healthy hand position in their technical exercises, the groundwork is laid so that if they play an exam at the end of their first year of study, they should be able to use their fingers correctly. My video. If you found this information interesting and you would like to hear more, or if you'd like to book a lecture, please visit my website at www.healthypiano.com.